This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 460 for the week of November 25th, 2018.
You're listening to Kanzenshuu.
Hello, welcome to Kanzenshuu,
the podcast,
an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site,
Kanzenshuu.
We come to you a little bit from the past to cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of entertaining. My name is Mike. You may see me online as FujiToEX. However, Mike is just fine here. Julian, you are joining me across the way. Hello, local here.
Yes, I'm right here in New Jersey. In here. Yep.
In my basement.
The Kanzenshuu Archives.
That's right.
New Jersey edition.
This episode of our podcast, we are so excited to share with you our experiences and our material from Anime NYC this previous weekend or 2 weekends ago at some point. You can hold things up, but it's an audio podcast. No one can see what you're holding.
Oh,
we'll get to that.
Okay.
We had a wonderful time. We're going to break this episode up the following way. We are going to start, I'm sure what most of you are here for, our interview with the one and only Mr. Tōru Furuya, voice of Yamcha in the Dragon Ball series. I guess we didn't ask him about Paku in the Dragon Ball GT TV special. Maybe we could have. I'm sorry. Yeah. We didn't quite get there. It was awesome. We had some dedicated time with him at the convention this weekend, in addition to his panel and signings, that kind of stuff. So we're going to kick things off with our interview there, and then we're going to transition over to Julian, you and I talking a day-by-day breakdown. We recorded day one after day one. We recorded day two after day two. We are now sitting post day three to record the intro, the day three, and the outro, which is not the format and order of the episode, but I hope you enjoy this episode. Enjoy hearing from Furuya himself, as well as Julian, who, it was great. I kind of just sat there and looked pretty and pressed record.
Yeah. Oh, I was nervous. I feel like I kind of stumbled over my words at the beginning, but I got more confident as time went on. It was nerve-wracking.
My favorite part was only quasi paying attention and then seeing the interpreter just walk out of the room. She's like, I'm not needed here.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad about that. I did apologize to her when I saw her in the signing. I'm like, I feel like I was kind of rude. She's like, no, I was fine.
All right, let's get into it right now. Tōru Furuya, Kanzenshuu style. We'll see on the flip side to do a day-by-day breakdown of the convention. Let's go. So we started by asking Mr. Furuya that he's mentioned previously in the past that he was, as a reader of Toriyama's and of Dr. Slump, seeing Yamcha for the first time. What were his expectations going into that character, and how did that change over time?
ドクタースランプの原作を読んでてとても好きでしたから。
And so he said, he had read Dr. Slump. He enjoyed it a lot. He thought it was a lot of fun. And so he was naturally paying attention to Dragon Ball when it started. And he had the good fortune to be chosen as the character of Yamcha. Now, of course, when Yamcha started, he was sort of this lone wolf type in the middle of the desert, and seemed very strong. But of course, over time, more and more strong characters like Piccolo and Vegeta come out, and he sort of gradually becomes more of the comic relief type character there. So, and that was kind of a shame. He'd prefer to be the strong Yamcha who gets to fight.
それは残念です。
そうなんですか。やっぱりその強い方のヤムチャが。
戦いたいです。ファイトしたいですね。
Now, for a while, it seemed like the Tournament of Power in Dragon Ball Super seemed to kind of want us to think that Yamcha was going to get involved a little bit there. But ultimately, he didn't. So we were curious if Furuya-san was disappointed in that he didn't get a chance to show off a little bit there.
いや、もちろんがっかりしました。もうぜひ力の大会に参加したかったですし。
Yes, and he said he was a little bit disappointed, and he would have liked to get a chance to be among the participants. But at this point, Yamcha is really sort of a comedian. He's comic relief when he shows up. And there really aren't a huge number of those comedic moments, especially getting into later in the series. And he'd like to see more of a little bit of that comic relief come back, so you can sort of have a breather.
シーンを作る役割だともう今は思っています。ヤムチャは。はい。
So with all that in mind, we were curious if the baseball episode where Yamcha comes back and he's kind of like the main character of the episode, it's almost like a consolation for that or made up for it in any way for him.
もうかっこいいヤムチャを見せたいと思いました。で、ヤムチャは野球だけは強いので、
Yeah, and he said he really wanted to approach it as, to show off a cool sort of Yamcha, because after all, baseball is one of the only things that he's good at this point. And, he had fun with it, and of course at the end he ends up in that, by now, sort of meme-tastic pose of the dead on the ground. It's kind of a shame that it was the whole ball game just for him to end up like that, but in spite of that, Yamcha fans really enjoyed it, and in some ways, that made him happy, and in some ways he's sort of, very much sort of the closest to the everyman among all the different characters. That really makes him easy to relate to. Made him happy.
なのでそういう風な人間的アピールがあるということですね。
So, of course, something that we recently talked about on the podcast was the case of being reincarnated as Yamcha by Dragon Garo Lee. So we kind of prefaced it with, the death pose has become a very comedic element at this point. It's been referenced in things like Dragon Ball SD that's running in Saikyo Jump. And now we have this entire manga dedicated to Yamcha. What were his thoughts on the manga? Had anyone brought it to his attention?
ヤムチャ自体が、なんて言うんですか、コメディアンという要素もあって、かなり印象的だったなと思います。
ね、だから生まれ変わったヤムチャは強かったじゃないですか。
Yes, so he has read it, and he was happy about it because after all, the Yamcha that appears in that one is actually quite a bit stronger, and he would definitely like to see that made into animation at some point. And so I added, yes, if anybody at Toei Animation if we could maybe ask that of them, then I definitely want to see that.
誰かにそう由来したいですね。
At this point in his career, Furuya-san has basically worked with everyone there is in the industry. We were curious, though, if there's anyone that he hasn't worked with that he would be excited to work alongside.
一緒に仕事をしたい人、どうだろう、誰かいたかな。
Yes, and he took his time answering this one. He gave it a lot of thought, and then he said, well, he pretty much has worked with everyone in the voice acting industry. So if there was somebody that he hasn't worked with that he would like to, it would probably be a live-action actor or perhaps actress, such as the actress Yuriko Ishida, who has been in such works as... Actually, she has been in some anime in terms of Princess Mononoke. She was San, the voice of that character. But yes, he would love to work with her or perhaps go out for a few drinks with her. He has this sort of character, I think, is sort of a lady killer, which I don't know that he necessarily is, but he has a lot of fun milking that for what it's worth.
Furuya-san has played so many characters. Of course, we know him as Yamcha, Mamo-chan, and Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon, even things like in Kimigori Orange Road. He's played so many characters over the years. We were curious if there's any roles or performances that aren't brought up as often that he would love for people to check out and maybe see him in a different light.
キャシャンシンスっていうアニメーションで僕は主人公のキャシャンをやりました。
And right off the bat, he mentioned Casshern's Sins, which was a 2010 reboot of the earlier Casshern series from the 1970s. He played the main character, and it wasn't such a big hit in Japan, but he felt like it's a really strong work that was pretty deep in terms of the story, and he would love for American fans to check it out and to like it too.
好きになってほしいです。
This is a question that actually came up during the bigger panel as well, but we had it on the list. We wanted to get a little more in depth here. Furuya-san has been running his website, Toru's Home, for almost as long as we've been running our website, if not longer. I actually need to go back and check the date. I think it might be 96 on there. He might have me by a couple of years. He's very big in the fan interaction, whether it's through the website or these days through Twitter as well. So we were curious, how has that fan interaction changed over times, and kind of like what is the value there?
やっぱりツイッターが出てきてから
And he said, he felt like the big thing that's changed now is that you get a lot of responses from fans who've seen things that he's been in and from all over the world, and it's almost instantaneous. And so, he really appreciates that aspect of social media, and the fact that he gets things in all sorts of languages. And, he uses translation software to try to read them, and unfortunately he can't always respond to them. but it really does make him happy. And I asked what sort of response has really he found that he liked the best out of everything that he's experienced so far in terms of that. And he just he says that it's not just that people like the roles that he's played, but through those roles that he's played, that people also come to like him, Tōru Furuya, especially young ladies.
そうなんですか。はい。まあ、確かに古谷さんも結構魅力的な人物だと思いますんで。
And in classic style, we wrap things up with just a message for the Dragon Ball fans out there.
ヤムチャはなかなかメインの戦いとかにも、参加することは少ないですけれども、ヤムチャ自身のキャラクターを、忘れないで、これからもきっと何か作品の中で、ヤムチャが出てきて、まあおそらく笑いを取るシーンだと思いますけど、まあ出てくるので、それをぜひ楽しみに待っていてほしいと思います。忘れないでください。
ありがとうございます。今日はありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
Yes, and so he says that Yamcha is no longer fighting on the front lines. He doesn't participate in many battles anymore. But please don't forget about him, and he's sure that in the future Yamcha will turn up again in future works, although probably as comic relief. But please look forward to that, and don't forget about him.
So today was a little bit of a short day for us. You had a long ass commute. We had a snowstorm, if you didn't know, over here in the Northeast U.S.
Snowpocalypse 18.
Snowpocalypse, yeah. We were expecting it, so I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but it got real hard real fast.
Yeah, and, one way or another, I had to get here. And, yeah, that was a fun drive. Normally, it would take me about 5.5 to 6 hours. It took me 9.5. It was a little bit of white-knuckle driving here and there, but mostly I just played it safe, drove slowly. A lot of idiots on the side of the road who clearly were going too fast for their own good, but that slowed up the drive for the rest of us trying to wait for people to get them cleared off the road, So, yeah. I was exhausted. I ended up sleeping for about 10 hours.
Got to a point this morning, I'm like, Mary, I'm texting Julian, but he's not responding, Do I go in there? Do I wake him up? Is he alive? I don't actually know.
I was unconscious, okay? I wasn't responding to my phone. It was probably buzzing away, and I just snoring.
But eventually I just nodded. You're funny. You're like, where?
Well, I'm not usually here, so I'm like, where am I? Until I remembered, oh yeah, I drove down last night.
So it took us a little bit to get going today, but we eventually did it. We've had the best train commutes of our lives today, especially in comparison to what you went through for Comic-Con. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Especially compared to the fact that we had a snowstorm yesterday. You wouldn't be able to tell today.
You never know today. So we got in basically in time to go get our badges and head on down. We were thinking about maybe doing the Tōru Furuya autograph session. As we learned, though, they were passing out tickets. The autographs are kind of weird, though, at this convention. It feels like a mix of anime conventions and something like New York Comic Con, kind of the formal professional industry-run conventions, where a lot of, if not all of the American guests are doing paid signings. Versus the Japanese guests, which are free, but you apparently have to go get tickets. So it's not quite a lottery system, but you have to get there early enough in the day, and they kind of sell out immediately.
They told me 8 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. I don't even know who's having a signing tomorrow.
Right.
Because they seem to publicize who's having a signing on the American guests, but the Japanese guests, I don't know if they didn't know what their schedule would be until later on, but it's like, hello? Does anybody know what's going on here?
Well, speaking of, Mr. Tōru Furuya apparently only got into America a couple hours before he was scheduled to do stuff today.
Yeah, there was a tweet online. He landed 9:30 this morning, and his signing session was at 1:30. and his panel was at 3. So I imagine he got his stuff, went through customs,
right,
and basically hightailed it to the convention. So he must have been exhausted.
Yeah.
But even so, I would have liked to have been able to get a signing, and I don't know, maybe something will come of it in future days. I mean, it's only Friday as we're recording this. We have no foreknowledge of what is to come.
Right.
So if something does happen, it'll seem like a prediction, but it's not.
Right. So we kind of split up for a little bit there. I hung out with you a little bit. We're like, we'll get in line. We'll see what happens. You stayed over there. We both brought our reincarnated as Yamcha manga just in case. So you hung out there. I went over to the panel room where he was going to be in an hour and a half, 2 hours time,
right,
kind of around there. They were doing, in that particular panel room, they were clearing the room after every panel. So they actually had a lineup room next to the panel room. So I was kind of keep an eye on how many people are lining up for this. When is kind of like our make or break point. Julian, abandon your autograph session and kind of come over here.
Right.
And we figured, well, all right, his autograph session was from 1 to 2:30. So there's going to be a point around 2:30, 2:40 where he was going to leave the autograph to come over to do the panel. And sure enough, you didn't make it all the way up to the front of the line, but it seems like you had some fun conversations in the meantime.
Yeah. So I got stuck in the back of the line because obviously I didn't have a ticket. So they're like, yeah, if we get through all of this, then we might have a spot for you, but no promises kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if people came with the tickets, we'd get shunted ahead of us. But I ended up in conversation with this one person who was sporting a costume from, I guess, Mob Psycho 100. I'm afraid I'm not familiar enough with the series to know who she was cosplaying as, but feel free to chime in if you know the character with green hair and who's female. That I don't know if that's enough information to go on even, but she was hanging out. She was a fan of him as well, obviously, and perused the Yamcha manga. And we ended up then talking to the people ahead of us who were both cosplaying as characters from shows that Tōru Furuya had been in. One was dressed as somebody from Detective Conan, and the other person was dressed as Amuro himself, basically. And they were both from Japan. One was in New York already. One had flown in specifically for the con and was really hoping to get an autograph from him. We chatted about our fandom, and I showed off my getting to talk to Masako Nozawa last month because I'm going to milk that for all it's worth. And, exchange social media handles because what do nerdy fans do?
Right.
And as it turns out, even though they had tickets, they didn't get in either. And they were promised that they would get shown to the front of the line if they came back on Sunday, but at least one of them was flying out on Saturday, so
what a bummer.
That's got to suck.
Yeah.
But made some new acquaintances, got to chat about our respective fandoms, and had some good times on the side, even if we didn't get to do what we had set out to do just then.
Sure. So kind of hung out there for a little bit. New friends, that's good too.
Yeah.
And then eventually just came over to the panel, and there were a bunch of people in front of us. There was still plenty of room at that point. That was good.
Did I mention all this conversation that I was doing in the line was in Japanese?
Of course it was.
Yep. it was just weird because I didn't realize at the time that the person I was talking to initially also spoke Japanese, but then the people in front of us were speaking Japanese, so we just ended up talking to each other. And like, oh, hey, you speak Japanese. Oh, you speak Japanese. That's cool. How did you, So it's like, oh yeah, we're all just chatting out over here in Japanese. No big deal, right?
You're literally that guy. Except you're not that guy because you're not that guy during the panels. So let's go to Tōru Furuya's panel, which was this afternoon from 3 to 4. I think it was something like that.
Yeah, about 3 to 4.
Sounds about right. Moderated by one of the reporters / editors. I can't remember their name or their title from Anime News Network.
Yes.
We had a separate interpreter as well. What is it with all you white people who speak Japanese that have the deepest of deepest voices?
I don't know. I just think it's a shared trait.
Yeah.
Which is weird because when I speak Japanese, I feel like my voice goes up just naturally the way that I don't know that that's a trait of the language, but it's just what my voice does when I shift into Japanese.
And it's like triple so in the Mezamashi TV segment where you're speaking Japanese, but you're also excited. So you're like way up here.
I was excited and I was trying to speak over the crowd. So it was doubly high pitched there.
Anyway, so let's talk about the panel. It was a fun time. We had about an hour in there. The way it was conducted was the moderator went through predetermined questions, kind of like series by series. We went from Gundam to Dragon Ball to Sailor Moon to Detective Conan, maybe a couple other little things along the way. Pretty good time overall. Then we had maybe like 20 minutes of fan Q&A. Let's save that for a little bit here.
Right.
Some pretty good questions in terms of Dragon Ball specifically. While it wasn't addressed by name, it kind of was.
Yeah.
First question, if you were to be reincarnated as Yamcha, what would you do in the series?
Exactly. So it's like they were sort of maybe trying to get him to mention it himself almost, or maybe they thought that they would be going a little bit too off the deep end in terms of like fandom specific stuff if they did that.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they would have mentioned it by name because that would have been a cool thing to bring up.
A couple other good questions there.
One of the other ones was talking about the difference in perception, if there is one, between Western fans and Japanese fans toward the character of Yamcha. And he talked about how he's kind of seen similarly in Japan as he's relatively weak and his death sort of becomes almost meme-worthy, and that they made this figure of dead Yamcha in his crater, and it sold really, really well. And of course, Furuya also has a copy of it. But that he personally feels like Yamcha, he may be weak, but he's actually one of the strongest Earthlings. Furuya himself puts him as number 2 to Krillin, and that he has a lot of human failings in his various weaknesses towards, for example, women, that make him very easily relatable to the audience.
From there, again, we had a couple more series-focused questions. Sailor Moon, Detective Conan, a lot of good anecdotes in there. Then we get into the fan questions, and it's you have to pre-vet your fan questions. You just have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the enthusiasm. I love the excitement. I love how earnest the questions are, but it derails and it brings down the mood.
Sometimes it can get so wonky that nobody has any idea what anyone is talking about.
Yeah.
And it takes the interpreter, who by nature of the job tends to be a generalist who's not up on every single thing that the guest has done.
Right.
And trying to convey what he thinks the audience member has said to the panel guest in order to get them to answer. And there's just this massive communication breakdown.
And I hate to start placing blame here, because at this point I don't want to blame the fan. Do I blame the host, the moderator? I feel like at that point it's your job. You need to bail this out. You got to figure it out. You got to bring it in the direction.
That's the moderator's job.
You can't let it just falter there on the spot. That's a very unique skill set that not everyone has.
I don't think I'd be able to do that.
I say all this and it sounds like, oh yeah, Mike, you sound like you know exactly what you do. I don't know that I necessarily would on the spot. I feel like maybe I would. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, so maybe I would. I'm not saying that I should have been up there, moderating this panel. It would have been a wonderfully amazing experience to do so. That said, there was that one question, the if you could be one of your characters death battling a character from another show that one of your characters was in. It sounds like I explained that question very well. That was not how it came across during the panel.
No.
And it took so much time. And what it really comes down to is I feel bad for the people behind that person, behind the people behind them, because it means they didn't get to ask their questions.
Right. And that brings us to the other issue that we encountered. And I know if I were younger and a little cockier, it might be something that I would be tempted to do as well. But of all the people in the universe, you are the most qualified to do this. And yet I would definitely not do that in that situation, because there was an audience.
What is that?
The audience member who ended up being the last audience member to ask the question asked their questions exclusively in Japanese. That's great if you're the guest and you get to answer the question, but then the rest of the audience who doesn't understand Japanese needs to have the interpreter step in and translate both the question and the answer, and that slows everything down and it wastes time.
Yeah. And then they had a follow-up to their follow-up, it felt like, and they had already announced we only have time for one more. It's just, this is a breakdown of just con preparedness. I don't know how to describe it. Like, this is the thing you need to know is going to happen. You need to vet your questions. You need to be able to say no to people and feel comfortable saying no to people. Like, no, sorry.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of the person asking the question, it's great that you know Japanese. I understand it. That's cool. I could sense,
read the room.
I could sense your enthusiasm, but this is a convention geared towards people who speak English, who don't necessarily speak Japanese. For all I know, apart from the people that I personally spoke to beforehand, nobody else.
Right. And then they didn't bother translating at all, the follow-up question, what the answer was, so no one knows what they were talking about.
I do, but it was so inconsequential that I already forgot what it was.
It's just, this continues to be a problem. Anime cons, I've been going to anime cons since 1999. This is still a problem. It was a problem in 99. It remains a problem here in 2018.
Yeah.
And this is the thing you got to do when you have Japanese guests. You got to feel comfortable saying no to people. I know that's tough when you're a fan convention, something like this.
And especially because I feel like when they're in fan events in Japan, it tends to be much more closely moderated.
Yeah.
By their very nature.
And we had a moderator here, but
some of the Japanese guests adjust and very naturally react to the different crowd dynamics when they're in a Western anime convention, but some people are completely mystified. And I felt like, despite his best attempts to sort of warm up to the crowd, Tōru Furuya just wasn't quite sure what to make of some of this stuff.
And it was probably a combination of that and like, I just got off a plane. What is going on?
Yeah, I imagine there must have been some sort of delays involved as well because of last night.
Yeah.
So he had just gotten off a plane. He must have been absolutely exhausted, trying to keep himself up till tonight so he can get on this time zone.
Yeah.
And
for a couple days.
And you've got people throwing up this obscure stuff towards him, which is, in terms of fandom, sure, whatever, but it's got to be a little bit made to accommodate them, Yeah.
So we say all that. The panel is actually a very fun time. He's a very personable person. We were talking about his speaking voice versus his acting voice. He's someone else. I feel like actually like Toshio Furukawa, where his speaking voice is not the same as his acting voice.
I feel like it's still rather high pitched, but it's not as high pitched as his character voices.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if you get to characters like Amuro Rei, who was like in his mid-teens initially, and Yamcha, who is much more dramatic in his delivery.
Right.
But he's got a naturally relatively high voice, but not that high pitched.
Yeah. So it was a good time. Yeah. We had a wonderful time spending an hour with Furuya there in the panel. From that point, we're like, all right, this is all we've done so far. Let's go explore the convention. So we wandered around the dealer's room, and I made a terrible mistake.
So he wandered into this place that had various figures from different series, and he discovered Super Dragon Ball Heroes Masked Saiyan, I'm doing finger quotes, or aka Bardock figure.
I hate Dragon Ball Heroes. I hate Dragon Ball. Julian, I hate Dragon Ball
For
Heroes.
someone who hates it, you sure enjoy buying their figures and playing the video game.
Have I mentioned that I hate Dragon Ball Heroes?
Is this becoming like some sort of Stockholm syndrome for you, or what?
A little bit. More than a little bit. It's much more than a little bit.
It's becoming a problem.
It's a problem. Someone please stop me. Someone please help me. I'm asking for help. Someone please intervene.
Well, we at least stopped you from also buying the Goku Zeno one.
There was a double pack. I almost bought them both. Oh, so all right. That's the only one I'm gonna buy. But there's a lot of Dragon Ball Heroes specific figures out there these days.
Yeah. Was there another one? Was the female Saiyan?
The note equivalent.
Yeah. In the Super Saiyan God form. Yeah.
I'm speaking of the bigger ones in particular. Like you like Bardock? You like a particular form of Bardock? We got that Bardock. You want Super Saiyan 3 Bardock? We got Super Saiyan 3 Bardock.
Yeah.
Let's go.
There was that. I was surprised we didn't see a Super Saiyan 4 Broly. Maybe we're speaking too soon.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll go back and take a closer look tomorrow. Lots of Dragon Ball figures. I mean, this is normal, but I feel like the hero-specific stuff is definitely getting out there. And maybe that ties in with the news. We're not doing the news segment this episode, but the Australian government's website has provided a rating for Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission on the Nintendo Switch. So maybe it's getting out there.
Maybe. I mean, think about the title. What does that tell you about what their aspirations are for the game?
Warudo Mission, yes. Getting out there.
Zawarudo.
Oh, yeah, please freeze time. Someone come get me. So there's a lot of Dragon Ball stuff out there. The Zokai Tenkaichi. What is it?
Zokai Tenkaichi Budokai, which is officially the World Figure Coliseum, where they have these different sculptors from not only Japan, but various parts of the world, like South Korea, Mexico, Spain, parts of South America.
Yeah. We talked about it on the Comic-Con podcast. But
quote unquote, compete to make the best figure in a particular tournament.
You're a winner, you get a figure, Yes.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. Lots of those figures as well, alongside the hero stuff. Good times.
Yes.
What else for Dragon Ball in the dealer's room in particular?
There's the ubiquitous Funko Pops.
Yeah.
And the Funimation booth, which is really an FYE booth selling Blu-rays.
Right. That's about it. Viz didn't have any real Dragon Ball presence, it seemed like, this time.
Yeah, and there was a few Dragon Ball cosplays, not a lot. Once again,
we didn't see a lot today.
No, and I felt like in general there was more cosplay at Comic-Con than this one.
I agree. More anime cosplay at Comic-Con than here.
Yeah, and once again, either way, My Hero dominates.
Yeah, for sure. Who did you see? All right, so let's transition away from the dealer's room. There's not much to say about there. Saw Mr. Satan, saw a couple Trunkses.
Yeah.
That's about it, right?
I saw somebody wearing cyan armor, but I wasn't sure if they were a character or if they were just in the armor.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to follow up on that over the rest of the weekend, see if...
I saw a cosplayer sitting at their booth who had a picture of them as Bulma, but they were dressed as somebody else I didn't know.
Right. What else about today? I mean, we kind of did a brief pop in at the Artist Alley as well, but then we dipped out. It was a relatively short day for us overall.
Yeah.
We have a long day ahead of us tomorrow, so we cut it short.
Today we had a late start, but tomorrow there's panels in the morning, there's press stuff in the morning. In the afternoon, there's Hironobu Kageyama. And also Shokotan, was she performing tomorrow
Julian,
as well?
Tomorrow evening, we are seeing Hironobu Kageyama, Hiroshi Kitadani, Shoko Nakagawa in concert. I am beyond stoked. This sounds like the best time in the world.
Yes.
So that's tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening.
Get out your glow sticks.
Yeah. But also, tomorrow morning, we have some interview time with Tōru Furuya.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
We didn't talk about this.
You're right. Oh, we almost forgot.
We stalked him in the dealer's room.
Well, we didn't stalk him. We were wandering around.
I kind of stalked him.
Yeah. So Mike points to me or taps me on the shoulder, goes, Julian. Like, what? Did I miss something?
Short dude, look.
Like, oh, Tōru Furuya just walked by me going the other direction. So as he went into a booth to check stuff out, but as he came out, I walked up to him and said, "Oh, you're Tōru Furuya, aren't you? Well, thank you so much for coming. I was wondering though if you might mind if I could take a picture with you." And he said, "Okay." This exchange was all in Japanese, and so we did, and I have photographic evidence that I met him.
Good times. So tomorrow, I took a real creepy shot, and he looked at me at the exact time I was doing it. I was like, God damn it. So now he thinks I'm a weirdo.
That's okay.
But then so I kind of like walked around the corner away while you were doing it because I was too embarrassed. You came back as you were taking a photo.
Right. So this is my latest in a long line of Julian takes a picture standing next to people related to Dragon
Julian,
Ball.
there's a person. Go talk to them.
Yeah, so far, I've had my picture taken with the director of Battle of Gods, with the head of the Dragon Ball Room, who at the time was just the editor-in-chief of V-Jump, and also Masako Nozawa, and now Tōru Furuya.
Yep, good stuff. So, as I was getting at, we have some brief time with him tomorrow.
Yes.
So I'm very excited for that. And we'll see where the day takes us with that and beyond.
Yes. So. Masakazu Morita is out and about at the con somewhere.
Yes.
We didn't get a chance to do anything related to him today. He had a signing which was already basically wrapping up when we found it.
Yeah,
and you needed a ticket.
Tickets anyway, so that kind of wasn't going to happen. And Morita was a late announcement for the convention too.
He's also, I think he's been in a lot more recent stuff, so he's a lot more well known among Western fans.
Yeah,
he was Ichigo in Bleach. And
Right. That's kind of
That's the big one.
biggest things. Yeah. We're like, oh, you're terrible.
you're Weiss.
Oh, yeah.
You like food. Let's bring you
I
food.
guess he was Weiss too. So we'll see if we run into him at all this weekend. Yes. But we definitely have Furuya tomorrow. Yes. So I'm very excited about this.
Yes.
Anime NYC, we had a pretty good time. Again, all things considered, it was a relatively short day for us. But we know we have a long day ahead of us tomorrow. And we're like, well, we want to go home and podcast about the first day while it's still totally fresh in our heads. So cut it short and came home, and an awesome day, an awesome Saturday ahead of us.
Pretty much, yeah. It'll be fun.
Yep. All right, so let's cut this here, and the next time you hear us will either be during Saturday or after Saturday or Sunday morning, and it might be another one of those, it's Sunday, I'm so tired, but we had a wonderful time.
I have to drive back today.
I have no idea what...
I don't know what the roads are going to be like. I don't want to be on another 9-hour drive. Oh, my tailbone is killing me.
All right, so look forward to that. We'll talk to you then. All right, day 2 is over. I'm tired. I'm so tired.
Me too. At least we had food.
Yeah, food has been consumed. We're ready for bed, but we got to talk about day 2. Day 2 started, everything perfectly on schedule, on time. We got there with plenty of time, super happy. We get to our press area, and they're like, yeah, we're going to need to reschedule to tomorrow. I'm like, oh. I mean, I understand, like, I get it, I totally get it, and we'll talk about our crack theory in a second, but this kind of leads into the overall just kind of flow of the day for us at Anime NYC is that there's actually not a ton of stuff for us to do.
Yeah.
On our beat specifically, and even for me as a regular anime fan, there's actually not a ton for me to go do.
I felt like outside of the few franchises they're really trying to promote, there wasn't a lot of sort of like more general stuff going on that people could do or take part in. I mean, there was video games in the exhibition hall.
Which was great. Play pop music for a while. It's exciting. But you look down the list, it's like, all right, they're really promoting K, whatever that is. Masakazu Morita's in it, so cool.
Yeah, and the Fate
franchise
series, which I've never gotten into, and the last season of Fairy Tail, I guess.
Yeah. So those are being pushed, and that makes sense. Now, I've been to cons like the wonderful Animazement 2013, and it was very heavy Dragon Ball and One Piece focus on that. So if you weren't into that, you kind of didn't have a whole lot to do. So, shoes on the other foot here. But we're looking down the schedule, and the schedule looks full, but there's a lot of signings on the schedule, paid and otherwise. And if you're not into doing that, it's a very autograph-focused convention, it feels, looking down there. And we just weren't doing that.
Right.
And there's nothing to cover there, so it really leaves us going, all right, let's go walk around the dealer's room again.
Apart from, like, special premiere screenings and that sort of thing, it didn't feel
Which
like
they did
had.
have.
Yeah. It felt like they didn't have a lot of just sort of things that were going on for people to do if they wanted to, just take a break or...
Yeah. They did have an AMV contest, it sounded like, for the first time. There were a couple other panels that were not standard industry panels. There's an LGBT panel today. I think there's an Anituber panel later in the evening as well. So there's that kind of stuff going on, but it seemed very, very spread out. It was either early in the day or very late in the day, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
That being said, the concerts were a big part of this convention as well. 2 days. There was one yesterday. No one we were particularly interested in. So that led us to today.
Right.
That concert, which was basically the big finale for us, we thought it was going to be anyway. Concert, Morning Musume. Okay. Shoko Nakagawa. Dragon Ball fans would know Nakagawa as the Oracle Fish.
Yes.
In recent Dragon Ball productions.
Big Dragon Ball fan in herself. She was basically reduced to a blubbering pile of mush in the presence of Masako Nozawa.
Right.
Which I really feel for her because it was difficult for me to keep my composure.
And she kind of did a similar thing with Kageyama on stage today. We'll get to that. Other things, people may know Nakagawa for Twitter pictures with cats, but also she's done a lot of anime cover songs. She's done 3 cover albums that I know of and own. I wonder if she's actually done more since that I haven't gone and checked out. And then we had Hiroshi Kitadani, who Dragon Ball fans would know from Battle Stadium DON and the J-Stars Victory Versus opening theme, but actually the singer of important One Piece theme song.
Yes, anything that starts with "we" in One Piece as an opening theme, that's him singing.
I didn't know there was a third one. I learned something new during the concert today.
Yeah, what was it? We Can?
We Can. I'm that far behind.
It filled me with hope.
Yes. And then the big one, Hironobu Kageyama. Yes, very excited for that. I guess let's talk about the concert, and then we'll kind of wrap things back around again and look ahead to day 3. The concert, they started, Kageyama and Kitadani came out and did Fighting Dreamers from Naruto.
Yeah, and that's a flow song, so neither one of them have that in their catalog, but they sung it anyway.
I don't know what the story is there. You're like, well, Flo did Head Chala, so maybe he's stealing something back. I mean, the entire point of this was an anime song celebration, so I could kind of see it in that regard, but I wonder if there's a larger story that I don't know here. Like, is this something that they do have done? There's explicit permission for? I don't know.
Right? I don't know.
It was kind of out of left field. It was like, you're not expecting that song from those voices. And like, I know this song. I know. Of course I know this. Oh, right.
But now I want to hear Kageyama sing Hiro Kibo no Uta from Battle of Gods.
I know. Let's keep going with the flipping around there. And I thought it was going to be more and more of the kind of shifting and bringing people in and going out and coming back on. But it kind of did go into mostly the acts themselves, maybe with some assistance here and there. Yeah. So we pretty much transitioned to Kitadani doing some of his own stuff. He did one of his Jam Project songs. He did all 3 of the One Piece songs, some other stuff in there as well. It was a great time.
Yeah, it was fun. And Nakagawa came on, and she was full of bubbly energy. She basically, her internet persona and her stage persona are one and the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much like Genki, for lack of a better word.
I am happy we can do this. We are all together. This is wonderful. Yay!
Yeah, you could tell she was excited to be there.
Yeah, for sure. She had 2 backup dancers with her, which is different from some of the other acts.
And some of them had like glow sticks. I felt like they were trying to land a plane or something on the stage.
It's good. I don't know. Nakagawa did not do any Dragon Ball cover songs. She's done a few over her cover albums. She led with Romantiku Agerio on the first cover album, then later did a cover of Senkai Power, and she did a short version of Don Don as a bonus track on one of those albums, but none of that was included here. She did her Gurren Lagann stuff.
Pokemon stuff,
Blanking.
too.
Did she do one of the Pokemon songs? Yeah. Blanking on what else she did. It was good.
She did a cover of the Evangelion theme song.
That's right. She did the Eva Main theme, which I believe was on her cover albums. You wouldn't necessarily know it from her personality if you weren't otherwise familiar with her, but Nakagawa can belt it, man. She's got a great voice, a great range. She can get into that gravelly performance as well.
She, her default is kind of the sort of high-pitched, what in Japanese is called the yosoiki no koe, the voice that you put on for other people to be all happy and bubbly, but she also has a fairly deep register as well. Yeah. So she has a pretty wide vocal range, and she puts it to good use in her songs.
And then we transitioned into Morning Musume.
Which was a thing.
Sure was. I know what it is, but have to stand there and watch it in person is certainly a unique experience for someone in their mid/late 30s.
I mean, Morning Musume as a concept has existed for the better part of 20 years now.
Yeah.
But their talents age out of the group over time. So there's absolutely nobody in the group who would be back from the time that any of the songs I was actually aware of. And frankly, the people who were there at the time seem to have had some distinct trouble in their personal lives that we'll not get into today. But that being said, they performed like one song I knew of and another song that I knew I'd heard before.
Sure.
And the rest of it was like just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it felt like compared to my baseline for them, which is again like 20 years ago, it seemed like they were really trying to get into like heavy techno beat.
Yeah.
Almost a K-poppy feel with like the really, really intense choreography and tight harmonies.
Yeah, they're always moving around. There was one particular part where one of them is in the center and the others are kind of like circling and swirling around her. And at certain points, they would duck down to get like this water flow kind of looking thing around them.
Yeah. One part I could swear that, oh no, it wasn't that group. It was actually Shokotan, which I thought they were ripping off the group Exile with the getting in line and then popping out from the sides.
Oh, yeah.
I just got away from the microphone. I'm sorry.
Gotta get used to that. So Morning Musume played for a while. Then they brought out Kageyama and they did, I don't know what song it was. I'm sorry.
It's cha 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 cha.
No, they did something else.
That's right. They did the first one. I thought you were just playing with me.
No.
What was it called? It's from like 20 years ago. It's Love Machine. There we go.
Oh, okay. And then we did transition into Hironobu Kageyama. We did Hedchala with Morning Musume there, kind of cycling through who was singing what parts, and everyone would belt the chorus together. Honestly, I mean, I'm selfish. I would have preferred Nakagawa there if they were going to do multiple people singing Hedchala, or save that for a closing finale.
Right.
But then when you think about what the finale was, it makes much more sense than Hedchala. So it was fine. Just the people there on stage, not my first choice to join him.
Right. That's it. It was fine. Mike and I belted out the whole song. All the lyrics.
Of course.
And a lot of other people did too, which I guess kind of surprised me a little bit, but clearly there were lots of fans who were familiar with the Japanese version.
Yeah, and at least doing the Costa, the callback parts.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then we just had a trio of songs in a row. So Kageyama solo did We Got Power after that, and then Bokutachi Tenshidata, We Were Angels, right in a row after that. So that was great. I was very rusty on my second verse lyrics to Bokutachi. It's been a while since I've tried going through that one. It was coming back to me though, so
yeah,
it was pretty good. He did some other stuff. He was a class act. Kageyama can do it all. He can sing. He can't dance, as he proclaimed himself he cannot do. But him up there playing guitar, acoustic guitar solo performance cover of the Real Folk Blues from Cowboy Bebop was kind of out of this world.
It was very unexpected, but it was good, yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's got a cover album that I was vaguely aware of, but hadn't checked out. I don't know if it was on there. Probably was, and I probably looked at it and said I should buy that.
Yep.
Forgot about it.
And he also did a duet with Shoko Nakagawa.
He did.
It was a theme from Spaceship Sagittarius.
Yeah, he said that was his first anime song.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the song. It's called Yume Konen, which literally means Dream Lightyear, which I guess fits with the space theme.
Yeah. She seemed like she missed her mark at one point during the song.
Yeah, he sort of like vamped for a little bit on the same thing until she found where she was supposed to come in. That's okay.
It was fine. Good hustle there. What else did he do? Did he give us...
He gave us...
we got Saint Seiya in there as well, so that was good. We got a couple Saint Seiya songs over the course of the night. I'm aware of them. I know them. I wouldn't say I'm not a Saint Seiya fan. I've just never had the opportunity to check it out. So.
Right. It's like I've heard the songs before. I don't know the lyrics, so I was sort of grooving along.
Yeah. Know enough to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Then to really wrap things up, we got everyone out on stage. And the big closer for the evening makes sense. Not quite jam project, but approaching and having enough people to play the right roles. We ended with Hero, the theme to One Punch Man. Pretty darn good. Everyone going nuts over that one.
Absolutely. That was a fun one.
Yeah. An appropriate choice. Good time, had by all. There was a VIP section. If you paid the ultimate mega whatever entry fee to do it, you got your own section up front with a barricade, and we were behind there.
A lot of, I felt, Morning Musume fans up there. They were really getting into that section of the concert, where those of us further back were kind of sitting there like, okay.
Yeah. It's cool. Sure.
Where's Kageyama?
I guess they had been camping out since early in the morning just to get front row of their own VIP front row. So
wow.
Good on them. All right, and that basically wrapped up our evening. At the con itself, I mean, I did a lot of individual wandering around today because you were like, I'm going to book off for a while.
Yeah, well, I was kind of frustrated with the lack of stuff to do, so I decided to kill time and to feel like I was doing something. I walked up to Book Off and browsed there for a while. I ended up buying one book, which was entirely unrelated to the theme of the con, but
or Dragon Ball.
But it was a decent price. It was less than the actual list price of the book, which you don't always find at the book off in New York.
Yeah.
Usually it's more expensive because the markup.
I just wondered. I looked for stuff. I was looking for unique things. I posted, Julian, it's Akira Toriyama, The World, was it special?
Just The World.
Just The World.
The softcover one, yeah.
Yeah. One of the video game vendors had a couple copies of that, so I posted that up. And then within 2 minutes, Joe went and bought it.
Yep.
Because of course he would.
Exactly.
Looking for more scanning material. They did have 2 copies though. They were $22, I think, something like that, which not a terrible price for that. I mean, It's not the most rare thing in the world, but it's also not everywhere. So
yeah, I mean, it's like technically still in print. It hasn't been discontinued, but that feels like they only do a print run every so often, every certain number of years.
Yeah.
So they go off the market fairly quickly as people buy them up.
These were well worn, but well loved, I guess you could say. So
yeah.
I guess Joe enjoy. It's a pretty good book. Some good stuff in there. Otherwise, in the dealer's room, we haven't really talked about this, but the video game setup, they have fighter setup with sticks alongside Tekken and Soul Calibur and some other stuff there. Decent recent fighting game selection. Lots of music games. You had your obligatory DDR, and I think In the Groove or Pump It Up. No, In the Groove was the other American made one, I think it was. So it was probably Pump It Up.
You played what? I
played Poppin' Music. Yeah.
With the bunny character.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was getting into it by the end there. I played a couple of rounds of that. Some of the music games that are out there these days, man, I don't know. Someone was tapping buttons and then like swiping across this circle screen. So it was like buttons and touch screen, and they were slamming all over. I have no idea what was going on. It looked pretty intense. Back in my day, we didn't have anything like that.
Back in my day, we smashed buttons on the floor controller.
We liked it. Yeah, Dragon Ball stuff in general. I mean, I knew I was going to the concert, so I didn't want to buy anything else today. We do have to go back. I say have to for one last round there tomorrow. I may pick up some other stuff. I don't know. I might do some eBay price comparisons. In the meantime.
Mentioned a couple of like SNES games over there.
Yeah, they had the Butoden games, which I already own complete in box. So like, not for me. So if anyone else grabs them, great. They're in pretty decent condition there. Tons of those games were sold, so there's lots of them on the market. I don't know. The video game vendor actually impressed me quite a bit. There's a lot of cool retro stuff and even more recent things. Tons of copies of Jump Superstars and Ultimate Stars. I saw some DONs there. So by the time you're listening to this, the convention's over, but it's nice to see that stuff kind of out there in rotation and at reasonable prices too. So
it's a plus.
Yeah. All right, so day 3 ahead of us is going to be a relatively short day at the convention. Julian, this morning we went there. We had scheduled an interview with Mr. Tōru Furuya. Apparently, that interview was rescheduled for the next day. So our working theory is that he wanted to sleep. Why is this?
Well, he only got into New York on Friday morning because his flight was apparently delayed.
Yeah.
So he went from that to his signing to a panel, and then he wandered around the convention where I got a picture with him. And then I imagine he probably went back to his hotel. I imagine he probably wanted to rest after all that.
So I can't really hold it against him. Can't blame him for that. But we got to get there early tomorrow as well to do this.
Oh, yeah. I'm still hoping to get my copy of the Yamcha manga signed.
Yes, we'll see how that goes. All right, this brings our day 2 retrospective to a close. We'll see you at some point for day 3, whether it's you and I or just myself wrapping things up. I don't know yet. We'll take it as it comes. All right, Julian, day 3 for us. People just got done hearing day 2, which was, our thing got rescheduled. Hopefully it all works out tomorrow. It worked out. It worked out perfectly fine. We actually got more time than we expected, and it was one-on-one, which was more than anything we really could have asked for.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we even got like twice the amount of time as we thought we would. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be a group, but other people canceled, so we had them to ourselves. Couldn't ask for more than that.
Yeah, it was awesome. You already heard the interview, but just from our own perspective here, he was wonderful. He was definitely very professional, but also extremely kind and generous in his answers. You threw him for a loop at some point. What was the question that he had a little trouble? He's worked with everyone.
Yeah, so we asked him if there were any Japanese voice talents who he has not worked with before, who he would like to work with. And he said, well, he thought for a while and went, yeah, I've kind of worked with everybody at this point. So he gave out the name of a live action person. We'll get to that.
So the interview was great. And at that point, it was basically all we were looking to do today. There was a Sailor Moon panel where he would be appearing, but we had already gone to his dedicated panel. And that was, the meat of the Dragon Ball content was going to be there, not a Sailor Moon panel. So
right.
Kind of skipped out on that. Otherwise, after our interview, he actually had a combination Sailor Moon and then makeup session for autographs for people who didn't get around to their spot on Friday's interview line.
Yeah.
Right? So you stuck around for that.
Yeah.
You got your Yamcha manga autographed.
Yes, I did. I mean, what else would I have autographed?
I mean, I should bring a figure or a cell. Speaking of bringing a cell, I want to give a shout out to Raul, who, Julian, sounds like he recognized you, perhaps even by voice in the room there.
It's possible. He was like right next to me in line. He had a Yamcha cell with like a talking animation on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I talked to Mr. Furuya in Japanese and said thank you and left. And afterward, he came up and asked if we were who he thought we were. And we
at
were.
That moment, I happened to walk up. So it was actually awesome. So thank you so much, Raul, in particular, for being there, saying hello, for listening, visiting for so long. That means a lot to us. And it's great to be able to meet people and share our love of this franchise in a way like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's great. After the signing... Oh, no, I had gone up while you were waiting in line. I just did another round looking around the expo center, the dealer's room. Took some more pictures of all the figures, which I've already taken pictures of.
Right.
Anyway, but I like them.
Yeah.
Checked in on people still playing Fighters all weekend. Fighters was there alongside, like I mentioned, Tekken, Cross Battle, and Soul Calibur.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff for sale. Just tons of Dragon Ball merch everywhere. One of the Toriyama the World, not really magazine, the art books, was still there. Joe didn't buy both, so the other one was still there. I saw they actually had a couple more Dragon Ball games on display than they previously did. They had a couple copies of Dragon Ball Z2 on PS2, and every time I see that, I freak out because I'm like, is there a V on there? Do they not know what they have? No, it's just the regular version of the game.
Yeah. Although I got to say, the nice part of between the two of us and also Heath, having as much stuff as we do, we're looking for very specific things to fill out our existing collection. So we're not just going to grab everything in sight. You know?
At this point, I'm like, well, yep, I own all those games. They're here, and it doesn't do me any good to just keep buying them over and over. There's a couple where I'm missing a box or an instruction manual or something like that, but things like loose carts, they don't really do me any good.
It's like how I bought Kanzenshuu until I got all the Shenlong Times. Inserts.
Yeah.
Finally found a complete set of them like over a span of days at the same book off. It was nice.
That's awesome. So day 3 was relatively short for us, but it was an awesome time. We got our interview in. We had some extra time. And that's going to basically wrap up our episode, the interview and our kind of breakdown. We talked about this a little bit in part 2 where we were starting to feel a little down on the con about their offerings. I still feel that way even after the high of today. When you look at the schedule, it seems like there's lots of stuff to do. And I'm sure part of it is just our age and our intent and our purpose for being there. But even as a general fan, like I stopped in at the Made in Abyss panel for a little bit, and I'm like, I'm just not the audience for these kinds of panels anymore, if I ever was at some point. So I mean, part of an anime con is making the fun for yourself, the enjoyment for yourself,
right?
In the locale of that and the offerings around you, and we managed to do that. We're there together, so we're good.
Right. I mean, cons are always more fun when you bring a friend, right?
Yep, exactly. Had a wonderful time. I don't know what else to say at this point. I was glad to go.
In spite of some mishaps and some downtime that we really could have done without, I think it was overall a positive experience. I'd like to see what they can bring to the table next year.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be here, but...
they seem very interested in Japanese guests. The one thing you and I have been talking about is, are they really using them to the fullest degree? It seems like Furuya was absolutely. He did his own individual panel. He's on the Sailor Moon panel. He had several autograph sessions. I mean, he seemed like he was everywhere, as opposed to Masakazu Morita, who was just there for like the one thing he was there for, wasn't doing interviews, wasn't doing autographs.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a big name. He's a huge name in the field right now, and he's going to be a draw for no matter what he does. I don't know if that's the best. Who am I to say that is that the best use of the con's resources? I don't know.
I think he did actually do autographs, but it filled up very quickly.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For like
you
one
could
day.
get the tickets. Yeah.
But it was only one day.
Mm-hmm. As opposed to some of the others.
Yeah.
Yep, that's going to bring our episode here to a close. Julian, Anime NYC 2018, you and I. Looking forward to what they bring to the table in the coming years, because it's an easy train ride for me. So
yeah, absolutely. And if I'm in the U.S. at the same time a con is going on, I'd be happy to come with you.
Or I'll just bring someone else.
Gee, thanks, Mike.
No, you're very useful to me, so if I can, you will be there. www.kanzenshuu.com. That is kanzenshuu.com. Lovely to have you here, checking out the podcast, visiting the website. We got lots of great stuff coming your way in the coming weeks, in the coming months. My name has been Mike. That is Julian over there. Julian, if you could, sir, please wrap things up here.
今回も完全集ザポッドキャストを聞いていただいて誠にありがとうございます。インタビュー中に少しちょっと言ってるところもあるんだけど、それは緊張してたからな。気にしないでください。では次回もお楽しみに。
This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 460 for the week of Almost got there. I felt like I hit a syllable. I thought I hit it, then I second guessed.